Tonight, how the Attorney General wants to license police officers.
And do you know this man? Police are searching for the suspect who smashed their car window.
Plus, what we're learning about 2 new COVID-19 deaths in Peoria County. This is 25 News at 10.
From WEEK, your home team, this is 25 News at 10.
Despite 2 new deaths in Peoria, the Tri-County area, as well as the state, continues to see a decline in the severity of COVID-19. Good Tuesday evening, everyone. I'm Titor Lopez.
And I'm Marian Manko. Thanks for joining us tonight. But is that enough to move to phase 4? Or could protests cause a spike in cases and delay that transition? Kyle Beachy explains in tonight's top story.
Well, it's been just over 1 week since the Tri-County area, Peoria County on one side of the river and Tazewell and Woodford County on this side of the river, entered into phase 3.
And Bloomington police are looking for the person who smashed the window of a squad car during an otherwise peaceful protest. Take a look. They're releasing this video for May 31st in the hopes that someone will recognize the man involved. Bloomington PD was blocking traffic and providing security for a protest near North Madison and West Washington streets when it happened. Here's a closer look at the man that they're looking for. Crime Stoppers is offering up to $1,000 if you can identify this man and it leads to an arrest. City leaders in Bloomington say that they're listening to protesters demanding the end of systematic racism in law enforcement. During a virtual city council meeting tonight, all members spoke on possible changes that could be made, but council member Jen Carrillo was the only one who called for a reduction in police funding, saying leaders need to consider if the justice system was, quote, built on bad principle and needs to be completely and radically reimagined.
I like to think of myself as an abolitionist. And while that sounds really radical, I actually think it's very, very possible.
Well, all city council members who spoke tonight called for some sort of change in policing.
Mourners gathered in Houston today to pay their respects to George Floyd, whose death at the hands of police May 25th in Minneapolis has inspired protests around the world. Nadia Romero now shows us how activism is turning to action.
George Floyd is making us strong.
Thousands turned out in Houston Monday to pay their respects to George Floyd. His death in the custody of Minneapolis police drawing attention to racial inequality and police brutality in America.
We declare, Lord, that it's time for change, time for justice, time for reform.
The memorial bringing together the Floyd family with other grieving families.
I thank y'all so much for coming out to support us. And all the families that are here with me today, Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Aubrey.
Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul wants to license the police department. Illinois does have a certification process now, but officers can only be decertified if they're convicted of a Class 4 felony. Raoul says there are many cases, though, where officers may be fired and then move on to work for a different department without issue. The Attorney General says a licensing process would allow for misconduct reviews and consideration for revoking a license.
They often have their hands tied by collective bargaining agreements, by other measures that are in the law that makes it difficult for them to deal with bad apples.
Raoul says if passed, it could help remove cops like Derek Chauvin in Minnesota, who had 18 complaints filed against him before he was charged in the murder of George Floyd.
There's a group effort to take outrage over a police custody death and channel it in the Twin Cities. This rally took place today in front of the Bloomington Center for the Performing Arts. The NAACP there, Not Our Town, the McLean City Sheriff's Department, County Sheriff's Department, the Bloomington Police, and the Illinois State University Police all came together to support the Black Lives Matter movement. An estimated 100 people took part. Some of the people there told us that they had experienced racism in the Twin Cities.
Almost like they're rejecting what the world was and seeing a different world, and that gives me more hope than anything. And it's not even just these matters. They're open to the environment, to everything. Their energy is very positive for this movement.
The rally ended with 8 minutes and 46 seconds of silence. That is the length of time that a police officer could be seen on video with his knee on George Floyd's neck before he died on May 25th. Peoria's Black Justice Project is calling for Peoria police to release evidence in recent officer-involved shootings. They're organizing a protest for tomorrow beginning at 5 p.m. outside the Peoria police station. The group wants PPD to release all complaints registered against any officers involved in any police-involved deaths over the past 3 years. And tonight marks the 4th anniversary of one of the deadliest mass shootings in U.S. history, where more than 49 people were shot.
Caitlin Pearson now shows us how those lives are being honored peacefully in McLean County.
On this day in 2016, 49 people were killed and 50 others injured when a man opened fire at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida. Now, while Pride Month is typically filled with celebration, many who gathered here in Bloomington tonight say remembering the hurt is just as important. For Lori Bell, the painful memories of the Pulse nightclub shooting come back year after year.
This is our Pulse, and so when that happened...
Support for the Black Lives Matter movement continues to grow among professional athletes, both here in the U.S. and overseas. This past weekend brought another wave of peaceful protests and marches with athletes right in the mix. And NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell even apologized for the way league leaders dealt with protests in the past. Derek Booth of Peoria Public Schools is watching those developments closely and sees this as a positive way to inspire younger generations to speak out about social injustice.
And so when they now see professional athletes also being involved in social justice issues, it also communicates to them the responsibility is more than just on the court. Or like you look at a Roger Goodell, the move that he made and statements that he made yesterday, I thought were monumental. It's okay to be a powerful person and say, I'm sorry, we got it wrong. We were wrong. We didn't listen. And I am going to allow for peaceful protest.
Booth hopes this is just the start to more dialogue on racial issues. And tomorrow, Bradley University's athletic department plans to march from campus to the Civic Center at 6 p.m. The arguments are done, and now it's up to the jury to decide whether Christopher Harrison is guilty of fatally shooting 2 men who tried to rob him 2 years ago. In closing arguments today, the prosecutor described Harrison as a proud and callous drug dealer. That prosecutor said that Harrison could have done a lot of things, but chose to chase the men down and shoot them 21 times, emptying an entire magazine of clips into their backs. But the defense attorney argued this case is about self-defense and that his client was legally defending the property that the 2 victims were there trying to steal from him.
Smoke them. Yes, he did. That's first-degree murder.
Your freedom allows you to defend yourself and your property.
The jury deliberated for a little over an hour this evening before breaking for the weekend. They will resume, though, at 9 a.m. on Monday.
Student athletes are in a unique position this summer to learn about race relations and mass demonstrations in real time.
Well, they really are. Pablo Iglesias shows us how they're being advised by the leaders who've come before them.
The stand against injustice has impacted sports globally, nationally, and now
enough is enough!
Locally. Chris Reynolds is used to leading and guiding student athletes as Bradley University's athletic.
With Phase 3 of Restore Illinois, restaurants have reopened their doors to outdoor dining for the first time in months.
So Luke is out to eat, going out to eat as well. He takes us to Normal's Distill Restaurant and Brew Work for this week's You Gotta Eat.
Now that we're finally allowed to physically go to restaurants, let's try Distill. Now, of course, we're eating outside today. Executive Chef here, MJ Gibson, says it's a welcome change to kind of be back to normal.
It has been an awesome experience to have guests come out each and every day and enjoy the patio.
But don't worry, social distancing and cleanliness is still top priority at all restaurants like this as they begin to reopen their doors. Now, once you get to your table, you can finally take that mask off. Thank goodness.
Distill is open 7 days a week. Luke says with every purchase of the banana cream pie, a portion of the proceeds go to the Nelson Memorial Fund, providing financial assistance to local nonprofit charities.
That's a great idea and a perfect day to be outside at any patio, really.
You know, it really has been just beautiful, too, to sit out on the patio, Jesse. I hope this continues for a while.
It really has been. And we'll talk about the dry weather continuing, but that heat and humidity, well, it soon comes back. 81 outside right now. That's Civic Center Plaza. Temperatures and dew points around the area. Dew point talking about that moisture. It is